Somewhere in the world right now, a truck is waiting. It's parked at a port, engine idling, and the driver hasn't touched the wheel in over an hour. That's not because he's on a break. It's because a computer a kilometer away is doing his job better than he can. Every single day, more than 800 million shipping containers move through the world's ports. If you lined them all up end to end, they would circle the earth more than 4 times, buying almost everything you own, your phone, your shoes. The coffee in your hand is a port somewhere that had to load it onto a ship without dropping it, damaging it, or losing 3 days to a paperwork error. For most of shipping history, that job belonged entirely to people. Cranes the height of a 20-story building, operated by a person sitting in a glass box near the top, judging distances by eye for 12 hours at a stretch. It worked, but barely, and it worked exactly as fast as a tired human being could move. That's the system almost the entire world still runs on today. But here's the part most people never hear about. Manual container ports are not just slow, they are expensive in ways that compound. A single human-operated crane cycle takes roughly 90 seconds per container. And multiply that by thousands of boxes on one ship, and you get vessels sitting idle at anchor for days, burning fuel and money while they wait their turn. Congestion at traditional ports has been estimated to cost the global shipping industry billions of dollars a year in delays alone. More disruption than most single natural disasters caused to global trade in a given year. In 2017, a team at Qingdao port in China's Shandong province did something no one else in Asia had done. They switched on the continent's first fully automated container terminal. If you enjoy videos about the unglamorous machines quietly rebuilding how the world moves goods, hit like and subscribe so you never miss one. Why did it take until 2017, on a technology people had dreamed about for decades, for anyone to actually pull it off? The honest answer is that automating a port is exponentially harder than automating a factory floor. A factory is indoors, climate-controlled, and repeats the same motion in the same spot. A port is outdoors, exposed to wind, rain, and salt air, moving unpredictable cargo weighing anywhere from a few hundred kilograms to over 30 tons, docked by ships that are never in exactly the same position twice. Early automation attempts in Europe in the 1990s and 2000s, including terminals in Rotterdam and Hamburg, proved automation was possible, but not yet efficient. Early automated terminals frequently moved containers slower than skilled human crane operators, because the software couldn't yet judge wind sway, container weight distribution, and ship movement together in real time. That wasn't a failure of ambition. It was a real engineering trade-off. You could have full automation, or you could have speed. But for a long time, not both at once. Shipping companies operating on razor-thin margins understandably chose the option that already worked. So automation stayed a research curiosity for almost 2 decades, while ordinary ports kept running on cranes, drivers, and radios. There was also a scheduling problem underneath all of it that almost nobody outside the industry ever thinks about. A container port isn't just cranes moving boxes. It's berths, yard cranes, trucks, and incoming vessels that all have to be coordinated at once. And for most of shipping history, that coordination was done by experienced planners working from paper schedules and radio calls. The moment one ship arrived late or one crane broke down, the entire plan for the day had to be recalculated by hand, and that recalculation itself could take hours. Traditional scheduling based on decades of manual experience simply couldn't deliver real-time optimal decisions in an environment that changes minute by minute. What changed wasn't one single invention. It was the quiet convergence of 3 separate technologies finally becoming good enough, cheap enough, fast enough at the same time to work together. Precise satellite positioning, low latency, wireless networks, and machine learning systems finally capable of making split-second decisions under real-world uncertainty. Even then, engineers had to prove the system could survive conditions no demo ever faces. The team that eventually built Qingdao's automated terminal ran a 48-hour continuous endurance trial in sub-zero temperatures before they trusted the system with real cargo, deliberately trying to break their own equipment before the ocean or a shipping deadline could do it for them.
The moment that changed everything wasn't a bigger crane. It was a navigation system accurate enough to place a 40-ton container within centimeters without a human ever touching the controls. China's automated terminals run on a combination of Beidou, the country's own satellite positioning network, and 5G connectivity fast enough to send commands to machinery in real time with almost no lag. At the Qingdao New Tianwan terminal, batteries of automated guided vehicles navigate the yard using laser scanners paired with more than 20,000 ground transponders embedded across the site, essentially giving the entire terminal floor a memory of exactly where everything is at every moment. The cranes themselves use 3D point cloud imaging combined with AI to read the exact shape and position of a ship's hull and container stacks in real time, the way your eyes judge distance, except accurate to a few centimeters instead of a few inches. Think of the old method as trying to stack boxes in a dark room using a flashlight and your best guess. The new method is like having the entire room mapped down to the millimeter before you even pick up the first box. The terminal's control software, called ATOS, chooses the optimal stacking position for each container out of more than 150,000 possible slots, recalculating that decision continuously as new containers arrive. The result of stacking this precisely is a 5% reduction in how often containers need to be moved and reshuffled later, along with roughly a 3.5% increase in equipment speed once the visual guidance systems were refined. By May 2025, that terminal had pushed single crane productivity to 62.62 TEUs. That's the standard 20-foot container unit, per hour, the highest rate ever recorded at an automated terminal anywhere in the world. For comparison, a skilled human crew working a manual crane typically manages somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 TEUs per hour. That's not an incremental improvement. That's more than double. Underneath all of it is a piece of software called ATOS, short for Automated Terminal Operating System, which Qingdao's engineers built entirely in-house, from the lowest hardware layer up to the application software that human operators actually see on their screens. More recently, Shandong Port Group partnered with Huawei to push that software further, developing what they call an all-element intelligent scheduling solution that uses large language model reasoning to generate a full operating plan for berths, cranes, yard equipment, and trucks within minutes instead of hours. One of the clearest examples is something called the Berth Planning Agent, an AI system that analyzes vessel schedules and tidal data and produces an optimal berthing plan in seconds, a task that used to be one of the most labor-intensive parts of running a port, where a single changed ship meant the entire day's schedule had to be worked out again from scratch by hand. Since that agent went live, its berthing accuracy has reached around 80%. And unlike a static piece of software, it keeps refining its own decisions with every new vessel that arrives, meaning the system that's operating today is measurably better than the one that launched even a year ago. The port that gets talked about the most globally, though, isn't Qingdao. It's Yangshan, the deep water terminal built on an artificial island off the coast of Shanghai. Yangshan's automated terminal is designed to load and unload 5,000 TEUs from a single vessel within 16 to 24 hours, a job that would need at least 700 dock workers under a traditional manual system. Instead, it runs with roughly 100 people, and their job isn't lifting or driving. It's sitting in a control room, monitoring dashboards, and stepping in only when a machine flags something unusual. The terminal uses over 60,000 magnetic nails embedded directly into the ground to guide its automated vehicles, letting driverless trucks navigate the yard without a single person behind the wheel. And its battery swap stations can fully replace a vehicle's battery in about 6 minutes flat. Then there's Tianjin, on China's northern coast, home to what's been billed as the world's first smart zero-carbon terminal, where a loading process that used to take hours by hand now takes about 10 minutes using digital twin technology, essentially a live, constantly updating virtual copy of the entire physical terminal that the AI uses to plan every single move before it happens. Around 92 autonomous vehicles handle the horizontal transport at Tianjin, all coordinated through the same 5G and Beidou combination, while roughly 30 staff sit in a control center a kilometer from the wharf, adjusting things only when something doesn't go according to plan. And in Xiamen, in China's southeast, engineers built what's recognized as the world's first fourth-generation automated terminal, the first one built entirely on Chinese-owned intellectual property from the ground up. No licensed foreign automation systems involved at all, initiated for research in 2013 and fully operational by March of 2016. Further south, Ningbo Zhoushan Port, which handles more cargo by weight than almost any other port on the planet, runs its own system called NTOS, which optimizes vessel operations through intelligent bay planning and automatic stowage, deciding, container by container, exactly where each box should sit on a ship for the fastest possible unloading later. Shanghai runs a comparable system called ITOS to streamline its own vessel operations. And in the first 11 months of a recent year, Ningbo Zhoushan alone reported a cargo throughput of over 1.2 billion tons, a year-over-year increase of more than 3%, alongside a container throughput north of 36 million TEUs. None of these systems exist in isolation. They increasingly talk to each other, sharing berth data, vessel schedules, and yard status, so that a delay at one Chinese port doesn't quietly cascade into chaos at the next one down the coast. The world has noticed, and it's not staying quiet about it. Port operators in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and parts of Africa have already begun adopting versions of these automated systems, many of them through infrastructure partnerships tied to China's Belt and Road Program. Germany and the Netherlands, home to two of Europe's most advanced ports in Hamburg and Rotterdam, have spent years running their own automation programs, and are now watching Chinese terminals post efficiency numbers that European automated ports haven't matched. South Korea has invested heavily in smart port initiatives at Busan, explicitly citing Chinese terminals as the benchmark to beat. Even in the United States, the conversation has shifted. Reports comparing Shanghai's automated capacity to major American ports like Los Angeles and Long Beach have become a regular talking point in trade and logistics circles, because Shanghai alone handled more than 47 million TEUs in a recent year, roughly 4 times what America's busiest port managed in the same period. Part of what's driving that gap is that American terminals have been slower to automate at all, held back by a mix of aging infrastructure, higher upfront capital costs, and a labor negotiation landscape that looks nothing like China's, where major terminal operators are largely state-affiliated and can commit to multi-billion-dollar automation projects on a timeline private American operators often can't match. As one terminal operations executive put it, the ports that don't automate within the next decade won't be competing on price anymore. They'll simply be the ports that ships try to avoid. If you want proof this isn't just a demonstration for cameras, look at the actual monitored numbers. Qingdao's terminal didn't set a record once. It has now broken the global efficiency record for automated port operations 13 separate times since it opened in 2017, each time under real commercial loading conditions, not staged tests. On January 1st, 2025 alone, the terminal logged 60.9 TEUs per crane per hour during a live loading operation, a number independently reported and photographed by multiple outlets on site. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, Qingdao Port as a whole handled 23.16 million TEUs, an 8% increase year over year, making it the 4th largest port on Earth by total cargo throughput. Efficiency at the terminal improved by roughly 6% in a single year, while overall cargo volume rose by around 15% over the same period, according to figures reported by the terminal's own operations team. These aren't projections or lab estimates. This is a live commercial port, moving real cargo for real customers, with its performance numbers published and checked by outside press every time a new record falls. So how big could this actually get? China currently operates 18 fully automated container terminals, with 27 more either under construction or being upgraded right now, which means the current gap between China and the rest of the world isn't a plateau, it's still widening. If even a fraction of the world's roughly 100 busiest container ports reached similar efficiency levels, the reduction in ship idling time alone could cut a meaningful share of the fuel that container vessels currently burn sitting at anchor waiting to dock. Fuel that, at global shipping's current scale, adds up to tens of millions of tons of unnecessary emissions every year. Faster turnaround also means fewer ships are needed to move the same amount of cargo, which ripples all the way down to what it costs to get a product from a factory in Asia onto a shelf on the other side of the world. And because these systems keep learning from every vessel they process, the efficiency gains aren't a one-time jump the way a new crane design might be. They compound, month over month, in a way that pure hardware upgrades never could on their own. None of this means automated ports are about to take over everywhere. And it's worth being honest about why. Building one of these terminals from scratch costs billions of dollars, and that's before accounting for the sensor networks, the custom software, and the specialized automated equipment that has to be built or licensed. Retrofitting an existing, decades-old port is often harder and more expensive than building a new one, because you're trying to install a nervous system into infrastructure that was never designed to have one. There's also a real labor question that doesn't have a clean answer. A terminal that used to need 700 workers and now needs 100 represents a genuine economic disruption for port communities, even if the remaining jobs are safer and better paid. Wealthier nations and major shipping hubs will likely automate first, while smaller ports in developing economies may not see this technology for a decade or more, simply because the capital costs are so steep. Regulatory approval, labor union negotiations, and cybersecurity requirements for critical infrastructure all add years to any automation timeline, even when the technology itself is ready today. There's also a maintenance reality that rarely makes it into the highlight reel. A terminal that's dependent on sensors, satellite positioning, and networked software needs a specialized technical workforce to keep it running, which means the skill requirements for port jobs are shifting rather than simply disappearing. This is less a story about whether automated ports will happen everywhere, and more a story about the widening gap between what's technically possible right now and what will actually be built in the next 20 years. Which brings it back to that truck. parked at a port, engine idling, driver watching a machine do a job that used to define an entire career. It's easy to overlook shipping containers because they're ugly, boxy, and mostly invisible unless you happen to live near a coastline. But almost nothing you own reached you without passing through one, and the speed at which the world can move a box from one side of the planet to the other is quietly one of the biggest reasons anything is affordable at all. If you found this as fascinating as we did, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you catch the next one the moment it drops. If a process this disruptive has been unfolding at ports most people never think about, what other unglamorous piece of everyday infrastructure do you think is about to get completely rebuilt without anyone noticing?